You are often a critic of the president and the policy. He's fighting for trade, passed through the Congress yesterday, a pretty big movement on free trade. How would you rate the job the president's doing on the issue of trade? And is America right now, do you think public opinion support the kind of free trade deals the administration's pushing?
Well, I think he's 6 years late on this, although I was asked this morning on a radio program, name one good thing the president had done, and I picked this effort to get the fast-track approval restored, which he had allowed to lapse earlier in his administration. I think he is swimming against the current in his party on this.
What about in public opinion overall? Is the country a free trading country?
I think it is if the president demonstrates leadership. I think this is true in a lot of areas of foreign policy. I think he will win this and get great credit for it if he stands out in front of it.
Mr. Ambassador, you published a recent op-ed in the New York Times advocating for bombing Iran before Iran gets a bomb. Why do you think that the outcome of that would be any different than it was in Iraq?
Well, let me say, I wrote the same editorial in the Wall Street Journal 5 years ago. And this one got a lot of attention because it was in the holy pages of the New York Times. The fact is, right now, there are only two good options. Only two options. Neither one of them are good. One is that Iran gets nuclear weapons, and they will get nuclear weapons whether they sign this deal that's on the table now or not. They're on a path to do it. It's entirely within their control, and I don't believe they're ever going to give up their 30-year-long quest for nuclear weapons. The only other option is that somebody uses military force to break Iran's control over the nuclear fuel cycle at key points. The president says all options are on the table. Nobody believes him. The Iranians don't believe him. The Israelis don't believe him. He doesn't believe it. So the spotlight's on Israel. As twice before in their history, they've struck nuclear weapons programs in the hands of hostile states. Their decision now is enormously speeded up by Vladimir Putin's decree on Monday to allow the sale of the S-300 anti-aircraft missile defense system. So I think we're coming close to a resolution on that.
Lots we could talk about in that, but I want to move you to some other topics. As you deliberate here, you've said to me and to others you're largely part of this to influence the foreign policy debate, and today you chose to talk pretty much exclusively about that. I want to ask you about a domestic policy issue. A President Bolton, what kind of Supreme Court justices would you nominate?
Well, I worked for Ed Meese in the Ronald Reagan Justice Department. I've argued cases as Assistant Attorney General on some of these constitutional issues. I am an originalist. One of my law professors was Robert Bork, who should have been on the Supreme Court. So I would pick justices who adhere to the words and original intent of the framers of the Constitution, and I think that would be an absolute requirement.
Who's your favorite justice on the court today?
Clarence Thomas, my law school classmate.
Okay.
And what about on the economy? What would a John Bolton economic vision look like?
Well, I'm pretty libertarian on economic and fiscal issues. I think what we're seeing today in the weak economic recovery we've had since the recession, the effect of the deadweight hand of the federal government in excessive taxation, excessive regulatory burdens, EPA, NLRB, the effect of Obamacare. I think the failure to get the overall employment up with the lowest participation of the workforce in over 30 years since women began to enter the workforce in substantial numbers is a demonstration of the failure of the economic policies of the current administration. So my general principle, my operating principle, would be to get the government off the back of the economy.
Heidi and I talked at the beginning of the program about biography and how Governor Bush talked about his. Contrary to popular opinion, you were not born in a dark suit and a red tie. So
you can't prove that.
Talk to us as emotively as you'd like to about yourself, your family, your upbringing, who you are as a person.
You know, honestly, I don't think that ought to be part of the subject of discussion in presidential elections, but I realized I lost that debate 30 years ago. My father was a firefighter for the city of Baltimore. My mother was a housewife. I'm very privileged to be the first person in my family to go to college. I attribute where I am today to two things: my parents' genes and the admonition that they drilled into me to work hard.
Did you work during college?
I certainly did.
What kind of jobs did you have?
I was a temporary summer letter carrier, and I worked in a machine shop.
What did you do in the machine shop?
I formed metal for various pieces for scientific instruments. This was a job that my father also worked on. He was a law violator in Baltimore. As a firefighter, he was forbidden from working other jobs, but since the pay was so low, he worked another job, and so I worked in the machine shop with him.
Let us hear you lapse into your Baltimore accent.
Well, you know, I lost it a long time ago.
I've
worked hard to get it back, but my father used to refer to the thing you have in your kitchen that runs water in it as the zinc, and he was his job was a firefighter.
Firefighter. What do you like to do besides talk about foreign policy? Do you have hobbies? Do you like sports, gardening, cooking?
Well, I used to be an avid Baltimore Colts fan, and then the National Football League countenanced theft by taking the Colts to some other city. I can't remember the
Somewhere
name of it.
west of Baltimore.
And I don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I still support the Baltimore Colts.
You a fan of the movie Diner?
No, I've never seen the movie Diner.
Okay, if you're a Baltimore Colts fan, you sort of need to see that.
I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
And I don't know Taylor Swift songs either.
Taylor Swift. All right, that's good. The Taylor Swift thing better go viral.